Hey everyone, me Kevin here with an update on the next rounds of stimulus, the $600 unemployment boost, multiple updates on that, and updates on the market and housing. Today is July 9th. Let's get started. I want to start today by mentioning to you that I will never forget being sat down by my boss at Red Robin and told that I wasn't going to make it in real estate, that I had a good job making $9 an hour and that I should be happy on the schedule 4 times this week. Well, don't let anyone tell you that, because the next day I quit and I became a real estate broker and I made myself a living I could have never imagined. So when somebody tells you that it's meant to be, it'll happen, or just wait and see, and you'll get dealt a different hand of cards some point in the future, or all these sayings that add to comfort, I want you to ask yourself, what can you do to make your own meant to be? And how can you prevent all of these other toxic thoughts from keeping you down? All right, now let's try to get started with a smile and report some news. The Associated Press reported that renters are near the end of their financial rope, and this is not exactly the best thing to start with a smile, but I will do my best. The only thing that's been helping renters has been the $600 per week boost, and folks, we know that is about to end. At the end of September, 23 million tenants could be evicted from their homes. Just 38% of them are highly confident that they could even make their payment in July with the unemployment boost. Renters in single-family rentals seem to be doing better. Multifamily housing is taking the hardest hit, but both are getting slammed. Now, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin was just interviewed minutes ago on the next round of stimulus checks, and the $600 boost. And I'm going to go into exactly what was said right after I mentioned that you can get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes in the link down below. Apple Pay, Android Pay for it, and get 2 free stocks with the stock trading platform Webull. Deposit just $100, get up to $1,400 in free stocks, and potentially even more offers after you open the account to get more free money if you deposit more money. They are buying so much business right now. Now, here's what the Treasury Secretary said. First, we know that the president supports another round of stimulus checks. We know that Mitch McConnell is potentially supportive of a stimulus check for those making under $40,000, maybe up to $65,000 on sort of a ratcheted down basis. And we know that the Treasury Secretary has multiple times reiterated that we can get money out very quickly. Well, in today's interview, he doubled down and said, quote, "We do support another round of economic impact payments," the stimulus checks, in other words. In many cases, those are direct deposits, and we can get those into hardworking American hands very quickly. We spoke with Mitch McConnell and Mark Meadows late yesterday. As soon as the Senate gets back to Capitol Hill, we're going to sit down with Republicans and Democrats, and it'll be our priority that between the 20th and the end of the month, we pass a next piece of legislation. This is excellent news, because there has been a lot of bad news around the potential that nothing's gonna get passed during this 10-day window. This is wonderful news. Also, shout out to Brandon, who is in my real estate investing course, who stood by the CNBC interview and videotaped it for me, because I actually walked out of a live stream that I was doing. I was doing a verbal live stream, a mentee chat, and I came in here and I missed half of the interview. But Brandon stood by his TV and sent it to me. Thank you for that. Now, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin did go on to say that the next rounds of PPP would be more targeted, more towards smaller businesses. I think that might somewhat be a little bit of a slam that some very kind of large and profitable businesses have received PPP money, which in all fairness, I mean, large and profitable businesses do have a lot of employees, but it doesn't look good when really wealthy people are getting bailouts, right? Then Steve Mnuchin went on to talk about the $600 boost, the $600 plus up, as Larry Kudlow has talked about, for unemployment pay. Steve Mnuchin says, "We knew there was a problem, that some were earning more than they did when they were at work. That is, people were earning more money or basically receiving unemployment than they were at work." And he calls this a technical error. He says, quote, "We're going to fix that. We're going to make sure that people are incented to go back to work. We'll fix that, and we'll figure out an extension that works for those businesses and those who are still unemployed." Now, then he was directly asked, will this technical fix be a cap on benefits at 100% of whatever the worker was making before. He responded and said, you can assume that it'll be no more than 100%. But even at 100%, we want people to go back to work. This is for people. The unemployment boost is for people who can't go back to work. There are many industries who can't go back to work, presumably restaurants, retail, travel. So let's take a quick pause there for a moment. So we got good indications on timing. We now know that there's a high push to get this bill done between the 20th and 31st. That's very, very good. It's better than the news we had a few days ago. We also just heard that they're trying to do a, quote, technical fix to the $600 plus up. This probably means they're going to either tune it down to like $400 to $450, or they'll just make it scale with your income, which I know there are some people saying, oh, well, but that's more complicated. Sure, that's more complicated, but that is exactly what the unemployment system does. It pays you based on what your income was, and it scales based on how much income you made. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's more complicated, but the system already exists. So we'll see what comes of this, but all in all, this is good. Now, we do have more news as well. At the same time as Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin was giving an interview, Kevin McCarthy gave a press conference. He is the third-ranking member in the Senate. He is a Republican. He started off by saying we are on the road to rebuilding, and he was directly asked about the $600 plus up. And he alluded to this because he did a really good job of sort of dodging the question, but he started kind of talking about, hey, you know, maybe we should adjust the $600 to the cost of living in each state, which basically means states like Ohio might get about $500 and states like California and New York might get about $700. I know this because I actually published this sort of information in videos about 2 weeks ago. Now, I'm not expecting you to go through my channel and go look for that. I'll gladly bring it up again in the future, but this is a quick synopsis. So that was a really interesting thing to hear that that's also being discussed. Kevin McCarthy went on to say that the big priority now is obviously getting kids back to school. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin also went on to talk and comment about the president's recently threatened new tariffs, sanctions, right? Taxes on other countries, specifically on China, countries in Europe, and Canada, citing that we do not have a level playing field. And pretty much immediately after that, stocks tanked. So stocks are quite in the red at the moment, so this might create a buying opportunity. By the way, stay tuned for a video later today. I'm going to create sort of a stock portfolio, and I want to share that with you, something that I think will be accessible for everybody and easy to use and easy to understand for everybody. It'll be a mix of between maybe 30 to 50 stocks. So stay tuned for that later today. Generally, YouTube does not pitch my sort of stock and real estate videos. So if you like that content, unfortunately, you might have to either type in Meet Kevin into YouTube, or I have playlists. I have a real estate playlist, I have a Federal Reserve playlist, I've got a stock playlist. You can always save that link and check those. In other news, Eric Rosengren, the president of the Boston Fed, said in an interview Wednesday that we might start seeing more demand for their Main Street lending bailout program. He said, quote, the likelihood that we continue to have serious problems with the infections means that businesses are more likely to be disrupted for a longer period of time. This comes at the same day as Walgreens is down 9%, Bed Bath & Beyond is down 22%, both on bad retail news, including major store closings for Bed Bath & Beyond, which ironically Disney World, which is in Florida, one of the areas where dozens of hospitals are not only at surge capacity, they're seeing COVID cases surge, but many of their ICUs are now critically full. Disney World in Florida opens July 11th. I used to be able to just do a short 3.5-hour drive and be at Disney World when I lived in South Florida. But anyway, Disney World opens July 11th. Many are actually heading to Disney World saying, hey, you know what? July 11th is going to be the cleanest day. Why not go on opening day? And honestly, I kind of like that spirit. I don't know if I would do it, but I like the spirit. Now, in other news, according to a new survey from the Census Bureau, and this is from The Economist, so thank you for The Economist. The Economist, by the way, a very centrist news organization. You know, they can sometimes have little individual article tilts, but they tend to do a good job of staying in the middle, which I like. Since the new pandemic began, the share of Americans who, quote, sometimes or, quote, often do not have enough to eat has grown by 2 percentage points, representing about 2 million households. This is actually astonishing because, if you think about it, a lot of Americans are receiving substantial aid right now, and we're kind of lifting a lot of folks out of poverty with the $600 per week unemployment. Now, I'm not here to say that $600 per week in unemployment is going to lift everyone out of poverty and that people are not still struggling, but it is sad to hear that exactly this, that even despite the stimulus that's happening, there are still a substantial proportion, 2 million people, a substantial amount of Americans who sometimes or often do not have enough to eat. So if you're wondering why I have that fundraiser, No Kid Hungry, it's because when I read things like this, I get my heart broken and I get devastated, especially having 2 children. That's very sad. Now, meanwhile, The Economist also mentioned that Google Trends is indicating more people are typing the word bankrupt and bankruptcy into Google as of late. Now, I don't know if this is because people are curious about other people being curious about bankruptcy, or if this is because people are actually interested in filing for bankruptcy. I hate to say it, but I think it's because more businesses are probably considering filing bankruptcy. Now, moving on, Congress's decision to expand unemployment is going to be a huge marker for the future of the rental crisis and potential housing crisis that may follow that. I've broken this theory down in another video before. I will link that up above here or down below. So watch this breakdown on the potential coming mortgage crisis, my thoughts on it, and the catalysts for it, and when you might actually see those killer deals in real estate, if at all. You'll also see my strategy in that video. So take a look at that video if you'd like more of my theory on that. For now, that is the news for the morning. I really appreciate you tuning in. I'm going to be going live in about 20 minutes for my course members. So folks, we will see you very, very soon.